My name is John Passfield. The title of this reading will be M Montgomery Video 8, the Duet Duel Part 2. So here is my novel, M Montgomery, I Gave You Life, a novel by John Passfield. That's a photograph of the historical M Montgomery about 1938. In 1938, with another world war looming and her own personal problems threatening to overwhelm her, acclaimed Canadian author M Montgomery begins to write what she has decided will be her final Anne novel. As she works on the new book, she recalls the days when Anne of Green Gables became a worldwide literary phenomenon and the dilemma that she faced at that time, whether to write a series of novels in which Anne would perpetually remain the child the world had come to know and love, or to allow Anne to grow to adulthood with all the agonizing torments of the one who had given her life, L.M. Montgomery. Now, we're talking about 3 novels. This is my novel, as I've just said, M Montgomery, I Gave You Life. In this novel, in 1938, M Montgomery is an author who is writing a new novel. She is writing Anne of Ingleside, which she has decided will be the last novel in which the character Anne Shirley will appear. Now, as she's working on this novel in 1938, she thinks back to 1905, when she had just written Anne of Green Gables, and it had just become a worldwide sensation, and she had been given the opportunity to write more Anne novels. So the question at that time was, should I keep Anne as a child? The world loves her, I love her, or should I let her grow up as real people get to do, real children get to do? So that was the dilemma at the time, and it's the dilemma now in her thoughts. In 1938, she's reliving that dilemma. In a way, you could say, well, was I right or wrong in what I did decide to do? But she's living it as if it's the present moment, this 1905 dilemma. In a previous video presentation, I read the first 5 chapters of Duet Duel Thought in the mind of the main character, M Montgomery. I explained in that presentation that a duet suggests harmony and a duel suggests disharmony. I also explained that this dialogue is taking place in the mind of the main character of this novel, M Montgomery, as she's writing the final Anne novel. The final novel in which Anne, the character, will appear throughout the 16 chapters of thought in which the duet duel appears. So let's read the middle section of my novel, chapters 6 to 10, with each character's voice being heard 4 times in each chapter of thought, and with the 2 character voices rotating chapter by chapter. So chapter 6 will be L.M. Montgomery's voice, and she will speak 4 times. Let's go to page 42 then. And here it is. Okay, L.M. Montgomery speaks to her character Anne. Anne, I have a dilemma. That is why I so wanted to talk to you. Oh, how all those years come back to me. Years of brightness and kindness and hope. You on the brink of your future life and my life about to change, but still quite manageable. I had just finished signing the contract for more books about Anne, about you. I wondered how to write them. Should I have my Anne grow up, or should I write a series of books about Anne as a perpetual child in Avonlea? And now I have to decide what I should do. Do you know the sword of Damocles, Anne? Did I put it in the book? Well, it means living, existing, with something terrible hanging over one's head. Something abominable which always seems about to drop. And I don't necessarily mean the physical Anne, being swept away by flood and field. Well, yes, of course I do, but there are wounds far worse than physical, my girl. The physical is the least of the lives we lead. I can't bear the thought of you ever growing up, Anne. The perils that lie in wait for you are frightening to behold. You have no idea what I have suffered since last we talked. Of course, you've never read my journals, so how could you? You could never read my journals unless I put them in your books. And I assure you, Anne, that I will never do. Okay, then we turn over the page to page 46. L.M. Montgomery continues speaking to Anne. It's just that terrible things can happen to nice people, even to people as nice as, well, I won't say myself, but people as nice, Anne, as you. You don't deserve to suffer some of the things that have happened to me. Who are you and who am I, Anne? That is always in my mind. I took a vow to always keep us completely apart. Don't you see that I can create another world, a fictional world, an Anne world, a world in which only nice things happen to nice people? And I could visit you. Don't you see? I could visit from time to time, visit with you as I am doing today. But Anne, if our worlds were the same, where would I go when I need relief? Where would I go when life is too much for me to bear? What would I do without Avonlea? Where would I go to escape the threat of my Damocles' sword? Your world is the only thing that keeps me from despair. Well, that was chapter 6. Chapter 7 is Anne's chapter, and she speaks to her creator, L. Montgomery, 4 times. Here's Anne. You say you have to make a decision whether to keep me inside this book, whether to let the Anne of Green Gables world be my entire life. Excuse me. Are you asking my advice? Are you giving me a choice, or are you just taking my opinion into account? You didn't ask if I wanted to be born. You didn't ask if I wanted to be an orphan. You didn't ask me whether I wanted both parents to die. You gave me yearnings, but no control. I shudder when I think how I yearn to live here on this farm. I shudder to think what would have happened if Matthew and Marilla had said no. And the world of that asylum, and those people at the lumber camp, did you expect to make merely a mention and let it go? Those people were very real to me. You created the world I had to live in. You gave every one of those characters control over me. Even Mrs. Spencer's mistake. She sent a girl instead of a boy. Her blunder could have been a cataclysm for me. She gave me a glimpse of the enchantment of the island, of trees and fields and flowers, of marble halls and shining lakes and white ways of delight. It was a world of powerful people. They were looking me up and down. I was terrified that they wouldn't let me stay. You say you have a choice. I say you have half a choice. You made the first half of that choice when you dipped your pen in the ink and wrote the first words, Anne of Green Gables, at the top of the very first page. I want life. I want all of life. I will imagine it if you refuse to make it real. Please, Mrs. Montgomery, you cannot desert me now. To be an orphan is a terrible thing. No, you cannot make me an orphan all over again. Well, that was chapter 7 with Anne speaking. Here's chapter 8 with L.M. Montgomery speaking 4 times to her character, her imaginary character, her fictional character, Anne. Oh, Anne, you ask far too many questions. Why would you care to know anything about my life? Everything I want you to know is in the book. Anne of Green Gables is your world. It has a cover on the front and on the back. Everything between those covers is yours to love and cherish and enjoy. Everything outside those covers is not for you to know. And that goes for everything else in Avonlea. That goes for everyone else in Avonlea. A world with a world with a padlock on the door and freedom inside. The book was written when I was a certain age. I was about to leave for a new and distant world. I wanted to capture what life had been like for me to that time. I was a very sensitive child. Many things had happened to me. Half my life was lived in joy and half in pain. I took my childhood and split it in half. There was the light and there was the dark. I decided that I would write about the light. She continues on, Ella Montgomery. So, who would live this life? This life that I would capture in a book. This life to be always light and never dark. And that's where you came in. I needed a girl to sit on the shingles, to talk to Matthew on the ride, to lighten up the world as they drove along. I dipped my pen in the ink. Well, I wrote Anne of Green Gables on the top of the page, and you became the better half of me. And now I have a contract to write a book, a whole series of books, if you please, about a girl whom everyone loves, a girl who sings the joys of childhood, a girl who will live forever in Avonlea. Readers are clamoring for more. All the world wants to know about Anne. Now, should I give them Anne or give them me? Okay, that was chapter 8. Here's chapter 9, with Anne speaking 4 times to her creator, Ella Montgomery. There's something I wanted to ask you, Mrs. Montgomery, and that is how you decide what to put in a book and what to leave out, what to describe in detail, and what to just mention and then pass by. I can understand that you didn't want to get any details about my life at the orphanage. You have made that pretty clear to me in the past. I agree that it would have been painful to me as well, but why is there not more detail about my parents, about their life together before I was born? Everything in the book is mine. You have made that clear to me. But I have no access to what you decided not to describe. Would you yourself not enjoy writing about a perfect couple? A couple who were looking forward with delight to their firstborn child? Would these not have been pleasant thoughts for you as well? I can imagine scenes from those days. Thanks to you, I have a very powerful imagination. All I have to do to imagine is close my eyes. I can see the young couple bending over the cradle, taking me, a tiny toddler, for my first walk, showing me the springtime blossoms on the farm. I can imagine all of this. I can make it seem very real, but it would have seemed more authentic coming from you. And then Anne speaks again. What is your fondest memory of your childhood, Mrs. Montgomery? What is the nicest thing your father ever said to you? What is the most interesting thing that you've been told about your mother by those who remember her from the days before she died? Would these not have been the things, with perhaps a little tweak, that you, as my author, could have given to me? And she speaks again. So, what is a novel, Mrs. Montgomery? I live inside one, but I'm not quite sure what it is. What is a novel? Just what does it do? Is the novel written for the benefit of the characters? Is it written for the benefit of the author alone? Are we good friends, or are we good enemies? We two. You speak of drowning and being saved, of being adrift on stormy seas. Is the novel doing what you had hoped it would do for you? And that's the end of chapter 9. And then in chapter 10, the last one I'm going to read in this presentation, M Montgomery speaks 4 times to Anne, her fictional character. If life goes on, Anne, you will eventually experience all the things that you so understandably yearn for now. An education, a profession, a place in a community, perhaps a husband, a child, or perhaps a number of children. We shall see. But Matthew is gone. Marilla is old. Mrs. Lynde is aging too. So if life in Avonlea goes on, every one of our people will die of old age too. That is only natural, of course. It certainly wouldn't be your fault, Anne, but if life goes on in the Anne books, such things would eventually have to happen as a matter of course. And you, Anne, after your prime, after the first blush of enjoyment, perhaps earlier than you would think, the bloom might fade. Not every seedling grows to fruition. Not every dream breaks out into bloom. What you have now can be yours forever. What you hope to have in the future might never come true. Yes, I have tasted most of life's blessings, supped at the table and sipped the wine, but I have known bitterness that I hope you shall never know. And then she continues on and says, this is M Montgomery speaking, "Oh, Anne, you can never return to your childhood once you decide to leave it behind. You can never, ever come back to Avonlea. We shall both be in exile if you decide to leave. Yes, you hold me hostage, Anne, just as I hold you. As you are my prisoner, so am I yours. Linked together as frolicking angels, chained together as galley slaves, floating on clouds or awash in a turbulent sea. Should I accede to your request? I am the author, after all. Why should I relinquish the power that is mine? Consider my position, Anne. You are asking me to favor you over me. Would you stand upon the shore and watch me drown? Would I not rescue you in my turn? The world is a turbulent sea, and shipwrecked sailors battle the surf. The waves are battering the ship to splinters. Some are rescued, but some are not. We cling to each other, Anne, though you are so blissfully unaware. And I am in a position to rescue both you and me." And then M Montgomery speaks for the 4th time in this chapter. "Oh, Anne, you dear, dear girl. It is a very cruel world, Anne. My own adulthood has had its rewards, yes, but it has been filled pretty much to the brim, Anne, with misery. And you are in such a unique position. I don't believe you're fully aware of just how unique and how truly desirable your situation is. You could be the child, Anne, who remains a perpetual child, a person in this world of pain who suffers no pain. Oh, there will be plenty of books for sure. You need not worry about that. In a moment of weakness, I signed a binding contract, and I must write these handbooks now, even though I'm having regrets, or I will be in a position of one who has broken her word. Moreover, on top of all my troubles, Anne, I would also be a person who has broken the law. And don't you think old Page would go kindly with me in court? He would have his pound of flesh before the law. No, you are living on an island of sunshine and minor flaws. And you must hug your childhood to you, Anne, and stay just exactly as you are. Oh, my Anne, you are such a child. Life is too painful for me to bestow on you, Anne. You have no idea what torture is in store for you. I wouldn't wish it on myself were I to begin my life again, and I would never be able to forgive myself were I to inflict such misery on you, my own dear child. Excuse me. I have the opportunity to keep you young, Anne, and in a state of childhood wonder in all of the places that are so enchanting to us both. I have lost that, Anne, but you in your present state have the opportunity which is given to no one who is alive. The opportunity to stay as you are in your happiest, healthiest, kindest, cheerfulest, most painless days. You can be you with all the best that is in you and not you as well, in the sense that the worst days of your life will never happen to you because I will never imagine them for you. On one thing, be assured, life will not come and get you. Life will not come and get you. On that, I can guarantee you can be assured. Don't you see, Anne? Don't you see, I have nothing in my life to give me hope, nothing in my life to give me kindness, nothing in my life that makes each morning a gift, as it was when I was your age on Prince Edward Island. Oh, I had pains I thought were pains, but they were nothing to the heartache and agony with which I've been afflicted in subsequent years. I am Job, with boils on my forehead, in my wretched daily life, but I am Anne, in my innermost thoughts, with a young girl's dreams. You are the root on the cliff to which I can cling. And so that is the end of chapter 10. The duet duel goes on, but I will stop there in this presentation and talk about duet duels. There's some interesting things in the duet duel image arc of this novel. A reader might notice that in chapter 1, Anne Shirley, the character, calls her creator Mrs. Montgomery. She calls her Miss Montgomery in chapter 1. And then from chapter 2 through the rest of the novel, through the 16 chapters of thought in the mind of the main character, Ella Montgomery, Anne Shirley calls her creator Mrs. Montgomery. Okay, so in chapter 1, Miss Montgomery. In chapter 2, Mrs. Montgomery, and subsequently. Now, readers of the novels and perhaps the biographies will realize that the main character goes by a number of names. Her full given name is Lucy Maud Montgomery. For the covers of her novels, she chooses the name M Montgomery. When she marries and becomes the wife of a minister, she's known as Mrs. MacDonald. Now, Anne's choice of names for her creator happened naturally in the course of the writing of this image arc. I wrote down the names that Anne chose to call her creator, but at a certain point I realized that in 1905, Anne would only know a certain amount of information about her creator and no more, and yet here she was after chapter 1, referring to her creator not as Miss Montgomery or Mrs. MacDonald, but as Mrs. Montgomery. So I thought it over very carefully, decided that Anne knew what she was doing, and left things as they were. In contrast, other characters in the novel call the main character of the novel the appropriate name for the role in which they are thinking of her. Now, what's interesting about all this is to consider that although Ella Montgomery is a character in my novel, she is being presented as an actual person, what I would call a fictional character, fictional-fictional character. And while Anne is also a character in my novel, she is being presented not as an actual person, but as a character in the mind of the main character of this novel, as a fictional character, fictional character. So we can assume that whatever Anne chooses to call the main character, whether Miss Montgomery or Mrs. Montgomery, whatever she chooses not to call the main character, Mrs. MacDonald, for instance, has something to do with the way in which the mind of the main character, Ella Montgomery, is thinking about Anne and her role in the life of her creator. Another aspect of this question of how Anne is being presented in this novel, how she's being presented in effect by the mind of the main character, Ella Montgomery, to the mind of the main character, Ella Montgomery, is just how much the Anne of 1905, the Anne of Anne of Green Gables, should know, and how much the Anne of the present moment, which is 1938 in the life of the main character, actually does know. One of the topics that this novel explores is how the mind of the human being has separate compartments of thought which interact, negotiate, have duets and have duels with other compartments of the mind. A question one might ask is about compartmental security. Just how secure is the compartment in which Ella Montgomery has kept all the secrets of her life from 1905 to 1938, information which she says she wants to keep completely unknown to her character, Anne. So, this is my novel, Ella Montgomery, I Gave You Life. It's available on Amazon if you have a look there. There's more information there, of course. There's more information at my publisher's website, rocksmillspress.com, ROCKSMILLSPRESS.com, and at my website, johnpassfield.ca, JOHNPASSFIELD.ca. There's 2 free books. You just click on the icon and there's a book for you to read. One is the planning notebook in which I planned and wrote this novel, and the other is the reflective journal in which I reflected on the novel as I was polishing the complete rough draft. So have a look at those books if you're at all interested in all the many topics that this kind of interaction of myths, interaction of characters, interaction of people suggests. And lastly, thank you for watching this video.